God, oh God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things that I can. Oh, and the wisdom to know the difference. Pepe atua tu kua mai henga komaki kia matau kia tau tonu te rangi mai e i roto i ngā ua hanga me te kaha ki te whaka tika i ngā maro hanga kia mātou kia marama o ki ngā rereketanga o ki ngā rereketanga.
Oh, kia ora te whānau.
Kia ora.
Kia ora kōrua, no mai, haere mai, ki karakia, ko Amber Tamaka tuku ingoa. For those who don't know me, my name is Amber Tamaka. I'm here from Sydney, Ahitereiria, and I have the privilege for being in the same space as two beautiful people, Brad Haami and Jade Hohaia. Yeah, welcome. What an honor it is to have such amazing writers, authors from Aotearoa, and it's just a massive privilege. And on behalf of Marcus, Erin, myself, and the Karakia team, we honour both you as authors, as writers, and as Maori tangata whenua of our land. And we just so for those who are just tuning in, Brad is no stranger, neither is Jade, to karakia, and it's just a privilege. And we're going to have an awesome korero tonight, a discussion on some of the books they both wrote, and it's going to be an amazing night. So hold on to your seats, everybody. Enjoy the moment, chill out, and Brad, let's start with you. I have just been scrolling through some of your books earlier before we came in, and there's a few books, but two that stand out. The nation would know this one. Read The Life of an Ex-Mongrel Mob, Tuhoia Isaac. So there's that book that that I've been focusing on before we entered tonight, and then there's the Putia Whakairo Maori and the Written Word. But first of all, can you let us know? Tell us a little bit about the True Red. I mean, that must have been a bit of an experience, seeing an ex-mongrel mob become transformed and impact communities right across the nation. Can you give us a bit of a korero on that part?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Amber, and kia ora, Jade. Nā mihi nei kia kōrua. Kia koe Amber e whakahaere nei tēnei hōtaka nei mo tēnei pō. Kia koutou hoki rā e whakarongorongo mai nā kia mātou. So True Red, yes, actually came out of a dream. I had a dream of this name Tuhoi went over my head, and I was wondering, what is that? And so I just happened to turn the TV on, and there's this guy, Tuhoi Isaac, on the television being interviewed. And I thought, I'm going to ring that guy. So I was listening to his story, and then I rang him up and said, Tuhoi, look, my name's such and such. I'm just ringing you. I'm interested in writing your story. Going from a gang member, a notorious gang member, into becoming a Christian. And I didn't really want to write a book about, just straight violence that didn't have a message at the end. But I was interested in how he stayed out of the gangs. A lot of the guys, come out. They might go to church for a while, and then sometimes they'll go back into that world. And but he had his journey. So we met. I invited him to my church. Actually, he came and spoke and offended a few people with his story. And anyway, he came over, talked, and then he kind of tested me a bit. He wanted to, because a lot of people had actually tried to write his story and they never did it. And he said, I'm going to come to your house and have a boil up at your house, and then we'll sit and talk. So that's exactly what we did. And so every week we would meet, and I would record his story, and I would write it up. And how I worked is I would send him the written what I'd written up, and then he would correct it until we had a story that I felt could be published. And so we called it True Red. It has two meanings. Tuhoi saw that as a mongrel mob term because their color is red, but also we saw it as being true red is being true to Jesus, who spilt his blood, that we would have salvation. So it's got a dualistic kind of title. And so there were many kind of stories in there, that are very heavy subjects. And I remember bringing him to whakatane here, and I had my mum and my mother-in-law and my wife, and he was sitting at the table telling his stories. And I could see my mum and the other women in the house getting a bit agitated, actually, because they wanted to give him a hiding for the way his treatment of women. And so I had to save him from the elders a little bit. And so I knew the story actually would not necessarily sell well. It did sell very well, but I knew that the story would resonate and it would really touch a lot of people, because people were trying to work out how do these guys think. And I was trying to get inside the mind of someone like Tuhoi and to understand how their minds tick about life. It is about everything inside the world of the mob, and it's from from Tuhoi's point of view, his experience, and there are plenty of other stories. And I remember I said to Tuhoi one day, I said, hey, look, usually when you write something, you're usually having to verify the stories. So I need to talk to some other people from that world to verify your stories. And I remember he said, oh, yeah, that's right. And so he rang me up and said, meet me at this house at this time. And so we go to this house at this time, and it's this quite big mansion. And I'm like, okay. And we go into this house, and there's all of these guys who are, ex-mobsters. And we sat at a big table. And basically he said that Tuhui got up and introduced me, but he said, look, we've been writing this story, and I would like to really apologize to you all if I ever did anything to harm you or your families. And then all of the guys came and forgave him. And then all of the other guys, these guys got up and said, well, every one of us here tried to assassinate you and tried to take you out. But here we are again. So they all apologized to him. And so after that, we could now have a conversation. So they opened the doors, and this big feast came out on the table. And we had a huge feast, and then we were able to talk the validity of his stories. And so that was actually quite a, I suppose, amazing moment for me, just to be in that kind of space. Anyway, so the story is what it is, and it goes through his life and how he came out of the gangs, the issues that he had staying out, and he came back into the gang a bit more until he really had to see what it was that he was involved with. And then he managed to come out fully out of the gang and stay out of the gangs. And I really rate Hohaia. Well, I have to honor him really, because he's managed to walk a life with Jesus, in a way that actually really kind of serves the Lord. And so, yes, that book did a lot. He said to me one day, oh, how are we going to publish this? We didn't have any money. We went and saw a few publishers, and in the end, he said, no, let's just print 10,000 ourselves. And I'm like, man, who prints 10,000s of a book, and we haven't got any money? And who prints 10,000 when we really don't? We haven't assessed the market or anything. I just knew, though, that it would sell big time. And we had a friend of ours who did all the artwork and the photography and stuff. Fantastic. Did a fantastic job. And I ended up going to church, and I asked a friend of mine who was, at the time, he was very wealthy. And I said, look, would you mind reading this manuscript? And if you really like it, give me $40,000. So I can print 10,000 copies. That's at $4 a book. And so he rang me the next day, I think, after reading the manuscript, and says, oh, look, come over. And so he gave me $40,000. And I said to him, well, look, I don't know when we'll pay you back, but we will pay you back in time. And so we got the book printed, and I remember walking into the warehouse, because the warehouse sell bulk, and I just walked in there. They wouldn't really receive me. They said, look, we usually don't take books off just writers. It has to go through a process, and we usually purchase the stock that we like about a year beforehand. And I just happened to have a copy of the book in my hand, and this lady said, oh, is that the book? And I said, yes. She saw the cover and just took it off my hand straight away and said, look, give me your number and I'll ring you back. So she rang me back, and all I had was I got an email that basically said 1,000 copies at $6 a book. 1,000 copies, $6 a book by Friday at 6 o'clock. And I was going, I'm not going to sell it to the warehouse for $6. So I talked to a friend of mine. He said, well, what's the price you want? And I said, well, I think that it's worth this price, because you, in the marketing field, you usually take 50% off and give the bookshops a discount price. So and then they put that money back on the price. That's how they earn their profit on it. He said, look, if you want to sell it, you don't like their price, don't give it to them. He said, if they want it, they'll come back to you. So I said no to them, and then sure enough, like 6 months later, I just get a random email from the warehouse. 1,500 copies, $12.50 a book. Buy tomorrow, 6 o'clock. And I just went yes, press yes, and then I had to get 1,500 copies to the warehouse the next day. So it's just about doing those special deals, and it became the most stolen book in New Zealand. Any book in New Zealand that has moko or tattoos on it gets stolen. Don't know why. Maybe it's because New Zealand is one of the most inked countries in the world, and people just like tattoos. And so that book, yeah, that's what we heard, became the most stolen book, and they stopped selling it in certain bookshops because people kept stealing it. But we had a lot of testimonies. A lot of people read that book and came to the Lord. A lot of people, we had in Whakatane here, we had a situation where the bookshops, if they put that book in the window, the windows get smashed, the bookshops get smashed up because it's a black power town. And this book's about a mongrel mob and it's red. And so the lady from the bookshop went and approached the black power, one of the chapters, and said, look, do you mind can you read this book and tell me if it's okay to put it in my shop, because I don't want to get my windows smashed up. And they said, lady, you're the first one in the business part of town who's ever recognized our territory. We want to thank you. So then they read the book, came back and said, man, we love this. We want to meet these guys. And so we had a pōhuri in the main street of a part of town where the bookshop was, with Tūhoi and myself and our families and the Black Powers and Kaumatus. We had this little kind of Maori welcome in the main street of the town. And then the lady was able to put the book in the window, and she did a lot of sales in that window. So, in the shop. So since then, Tūhoi's, we did an arrangement where he would own that book, and all of the sales would go to him specifically. And I was happy about that, because that's his story, and it's his livelihood, really. So yeah, that's I could speak a lot about True Red, but that's probably maybe a little bit of a glimpse into how that book came into being. And yes, we sold 10,000 copies in pretty much record time in a couple of months, and I gave $40,000 plus interest back to the guy cash after we did a lot of sales, and he was amazed that we actually could pay him back within like 3 months. So anyway, that's True Red for you. Yep.
Yeah, wow. Amazing, Brad. And so what about to this day? Have you guys hooked up? I mean, he came out of jail 1985, I believe.
Yes, so this was published in 2007, and we've seen each other. He's you'll see Tūhoi travelling around on his motorbike, or he'll be at markets
Awesome.
selling the book.
Yeah, neat. Awesome. So good, Brad. What about the next book, Putia Whakairo Māori and the Written Word? That was, out of all your books, that's been a book that's been the most profound for you, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that and why?
Okay, so this book, Putia Whakairo, I don't think you can buy it anymore. It was published by Hohaia Publishers in 2004. And I suppose the reason I like it is because it was something that I was always interested in. So I lived in my grandfather's house and where books were tapu, books were sacred. And I liked, I had a heart for Maori things, and so my grandfather had Maori books galore. But he also had, like secret manuscripts, like manuscripts of ancestors' writings. We weren't really allowed to touch them; they were considered sacred or tapu, so they weren't really available. Although we would sneak into the back room and go and read the stuff, and while our grandparents were asleep, because they fascinated me. And so after my grandfather died and my grandmother gave me access to all the manuscripts, so we had manuscripts from his ancestors all the way back to 1848. So I was interested in, man, what the heck are these guys writing about? It's all in Maori. They're all writing, and what were they writing about? Why did they write? How come we have all of these manuscripts in our house? What was tapu or sacred about them? And so I spent 10 years actually just reading all of that material. At the time, I studied journalism. I didn't really want to be a journalist. I mean, what Maori in his right mind would be a journalist? And that means you have to come out of your whakamā shyness and go and interview people that are strangers. And but anyway, I ended up on this course, but I studied all of my grandfathers and my great grandparents, great great grandparents, and great great grandparents, all of their writings, because I was trying to work out why was there a need to write, considering that our culture was an oral culture. Where did the writing come from? And so Pute Whakairo really was 10 years research and about another 7 years of writing to actually get this published. And it's a little bit of a picture. What I did was I wrote about shifting from an oral culture. Our culture was in carvings. Our stories were oral storytelling and whaikorero, in the traditions of mythologies, but where all the messages of society existed. And so everything was done in song and dance and mnemonic devices. And so writing wasn't really part of our culture, although we did have little kind of hieroglyphic type writings in caves and things like that. But when the missionaries came, then our people went actually. They just desired the written word so much that they learned from the missionaries how to read and write, and then the written word became almost part of our culture, but it became sacred, and partly became sacred because the publishing of the Bible, different parts of the Bible, and therefore that if that is the word of God, then it's a sacred realm. And so writing became associated with Christianity, with the Bible, and therefore with God, and therefore with the divine world. And so I was interested in how we moved from an oral culture to a written culture. And then what I did, I just chose different aspects of writing out of our family manuscripts to feature different parts of writing over 178 years of the use of the written word from my great 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 grandfather, who was the first one in our family to use the written word, down to my grandfather. And so we had so that Pute Whakairo was really, if I looked about it, was 10 years, 17 years of research and writing just to produce it in a book. I wasn't a writer with accolades. I don't really have any accolades I never went to university really. I just loved storytelling, and I just followed the way that our ancestors wrote. And my grandfather and them, they'd go out, onto the maraes or visit people, and they'd have these big trench coats, and they'd have these genealogy books in their pockets where they would write things down. So he would hear the orators speaking at a funeral or something, and then they would write down everything. And so I began to copy that way of thinking, of holding little books and notebooks and writing down everything that I'd hear or something that I was interested in. So now myself, I've got about, I don't know, 100 notebooks, the same as my grandfather and my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather, and how they wrote and recorded things in the written word, where they would even write their own waiata, their own songs about particular situations that were happening in the history of their people or in the current day. And so, yeah, Pute Whakairo, to me, is kind of special because it kind of entered me into the world of writing. It's not, and it's something that most of us were never told. We didn't. No one ever told us that our ancestors were probably the most literate of any indigenous people ever colonized by the British. Actually, why is that? Because of the amount of written works in the archives, in the libraries, in our homes. We have sacred writings under the floorboards or in the roof of our houses, so that people can't get them. Genealogy books. Every Maori family mostly has genealogy books with all the genealogies that were written in them, what we call whakapapa books. Why? Because whakapapa genealogy was the most precious thing in Maori society. That's how you made connection to people, to land, to the gods, to the cosmos, to natures, all through genealogy. And that's why genealogy books became the most valued, precious written works in the Maori world. And particularly if they were written by the handwriting of the very ancestors themselves, that gives them extra value. And they caused a lot of wars, those books, because everyone wanted to find them, so they could have them, and that gave you access to land. So a lot of the genealogy books, sometimes they were used in the land courts against certain families they didn't want to be entered into land blocks. So you have this term, whakapapa tango whenua. There's genealogies in books or in the land court minutes that were used to remove people from land rights, but to give favor other people. So you had all of these things. So pute whakairo, which means pute means to gather. Like we use it for a fund of money these days, but its actual proper term is to bring together, and whakairo is like carvings, but it means the gathering of written words, which is the description of what a book is. That was the old term for it. So that book is, I don't think you can buy it now. You can get it in the library. I love the art of writing in terms of, I sat in the archives for years and years and read people's manuscripts and the way that they wrote. And you really have to understand the language and Maori language, because everything is written in the Maori language. I mean, I would travel around everywhere I went to people's houses. I would ask them if they had, family manuscripts. Man, people would pull out genealogy books. They would pull out books that really precious to them, and a lot of the times a lot of these families had lost the language, so they couldn't read what was on the pages. So I was able to read what was on the pages, and amazing things, actually. Letters during the land wars of what certain warriors were doing, and there was books where some of the tohungas had they had books that they had in their war belts, but they would draw the dreams and visions that they would have while they're on, being chased by the armies, and so you're getting a picture of all sorts of imagery that the ancestors were writing and using in the written word. But we were never taught those things, because I suppose at a time when we were young, we were taught that we just go to school, and but I never ever heard in my days that our ancestors were very, very literate. They were more literate in the 1840s than the Pākehā communities in New Zealand, actually. And they used to, give the Pākehā people a hard time. Say, hey, you fellas can't even read and write, and you brought that literacy to us. So what's up with that? So there's a lot involved in that. So I had the genealogies of the women. I had ancestors who had to write material for the land courts. We had ancestors who were using letters to send their ideas and their views to family. What else do we have? I had notebooks and diaries that were kept by family to record genealogy books. Every generation was big on genealogy books. My grandfather went to Te Aute College, Maori Boys College, so he diaried every single day of his life from 1910, I think, or 1912. And so I had every single day of his life at Te Aute College. He had all the boys' names, every rugby game, even the structure of every rugby, the scrum, who was in the scrums, who was in the back lines of every single game, all of these sorts of things they were interested in. And I just recorded that so that I could present a picture that, yes, our culture is an oral culture, but our culture is also a written culture. And that our ancestors adapted into the new things that they were interested in. And they recorded a great many things into the written word. And I suppose that's why I enjoy writing is to become a storytelling in that format. That has taken me into making films, because you have to write the scripts to films. But more recently, I've kind of moved into writing biographies, Maori biographies of people who are leaders, but they're not the top echelon of leaders. They're just below the surface that people don't see. And it's a disciplinary thing as well. I'm usually up 5 o'clock in the morning every day writing something. Just write something. It's a discipline. And my grandfather and them, they were like that. They were up writing their stuff or studying. They'd work in the day, and then right up in the evenings they'd do their genealogies or their writing work. So writing is a discipline, and yeah. So anyway, that's Pute Whakairo.
Oh my gosh, Brad. My writing at 5 a.m. in the mornings is on Facebook. I have lots to learn. But to be honest, I never grew up knowing anybody around me who wrote manuscripts, which is what inspires me about you, Brad, and not just me, but probably the entire nation, of how knowledgeable that you are around this area of writing. You mentioned biographies, but do you have a particular genre?
Well, I tend to write about Maori things, and biography seems to be where I sit, because I like to interview people about their lives. But at the moment, I've been working for 10 years on a book about whales,
Mm.
about what's a whale rider. If you've seen that film, The Whale Rider, what does that actually mean? So I spent 10 years, and we're just about coming to the final edit of that book.
Yeah, I've
That's not
heard
a
you. Sorry, Brad. Tell us a little bit about that, because I've heard you. I've been in a wānanga with you before on whales. Can you give us a glimpse on that part? If anybody, by the way, has got any questions for Brad, just chuck it in the chat. Sorry, Brad.
Yeah, no. Yeah, well, we come from a family that come from a lineage of people who are whale riders. And I've been working with an auntie of mine who's actually just been given an honorary doctorate in science, because she's had a lot to do with marine mammals, living whales, and she's actually ridden whales since she was like 10. She's a real whale rider, but it's something that's part of our family, and so I really felt to record her story and her Maori knowledge in that realm before it disappears. And I was challenged by what is a whale rider? What is that talking about? What are the ancestors talking about whale riders, and there are lots of them. Paikea isn't the only one. There's lots of stories of ancestors who rode whales from the Pacific to Aotearoa, but also around New Zealand. There are lots of those stories. But I was trying to unpack what does that mean? What is that image of a Maori riding a whale? What does that really mean? So, so I spent 10 years chasing that. And we're hoping to put it out next year, that book. So that'll change a lot of people's minds about Indigenous knowledge and the marine world.
Yeah, wow. I think a lot of a lot of your korero, your books even, has an amazing concept and the ideas of Māoridom and even Christian, in the Christian world today, is just a korero on itself, which we should actually get you back for that topic at another time, Brad. That would be That would be awesome. I guess probably my last question that I'm sure most of everybody would like to know, and if anybody wants to ask Brad anything, feel free to pop it in the chat or direct message us a little bit later on if you have something in mind. But how important is writing for Māori?
Well, I think we're in a literate age and a global age, and literacy is not just the written word, but it's understanding how to work within a system. But I like the art of writing. I don't like Kindle where you have electronic books, because I can't write in it. I can't feel the pages, and I can't just turn straight to a page and all of these sorts of things. And I just think as a form of communication and a form of maintaining knowledge to the next generation, I think this is quite important. Although I am aware the digital world and all of that is changing pretty fast.
Yeah.
But I just hope we wouldn't lose the combination of our oral way of being, to get up and just do a waiata and sing a song and quote your genealogies, off the top of your head, and to be able to write and convey your thoughts on the page in the Māori language is part of normal everyday life now. So I look at our ancestors they labored hard to maintain the written word in their language, and I just think we can't forget that. Anyway, that's an answer.
Awesome. Oh, well, thank you, Brad. You are sure an inspiration to myself, and I know Marcus and Erin as well. We think well of you, and if we get the privilege to personally, watch where you're going, and we get to follow you in those steps as well. So I'm privileged and I'm very, very honoured. And on behalf of us all here at Karakia, ngā mihi for your time, and no doubt we will see you again. So thank you so much, Brad. We really appreciate you.
Kia ora, Amber.
Kia ora. So whānau, up next we've got the amazing Jade Hohaia, who I've been hanging out to actually literally hang with. Yeah. Hey, come on, let's go.
Come on, let's go. There you go.
Let's go. Let go. She's been comforting me the entire day because I've been like, oh my gosh, how are we going to go with this? Where we're going to go? She's like, just flow.
That was
I'm
so
like,
awesome.
okay.
You're a great interviewer now.
No, I was leaning on my mate today, but all goods. All goods. But hey, Jade, you, I know you've inspired me. I've actually, how did I stalk you? No, that's been a famous word in our combos. Hey,
I think that was made through our mate Peter Ellis.
Yeah, it was Peter Ellis actually, because you wrote. You done a writing on Moko Orangi, and he's actually on the front page. Actually, I might can I just steal the moment, the thunder, and just put this out there? Hang on a sec. All right, hang on, whānau. Just I'm really new at this. We don't have Hannah. You have me tonight, so just 2 secs. I might be a little bit. Hang on. How's that?
Boom.
And you have us in there as well. Kind of like not cashew though. How's that? No?
Peter Ellis. Front cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. So Jade, tell us who you are. Where you from? What you're about? Tell us your vibes, sis. Tell us about this book.
Yeah, cool. Am I coming across echoey, or is that just me, my end? We're just rocking?
No, yeah, all good. I think you're good.
Vehicle. Okay. Yeah, so Heurio no Waikato Raukawa, Ngāpuhi, Ngaita Hoki, ko Jade Hohaia tōku ingoa. Yeah, so I'm coming to you guys live from the bustling metropolis that is Te Awamutu, Waikato. And a little bit about myself. I'm married to the very awesome Zacchaeus, Te Uri Karaka. We've got 2 beautiful babies, Te Awamutu and Te Awamutu. And I'm just really excited. I just love words, Amber. I'm just a lover of words. And art to me is simply the stringing together of words in such a unique and beautiful way that they dance on the page. And so that's what I love to do. I love to write quotes. I love to journal. I've written magazines. Mukwarangi is a special book because it's actually the gospel message, te rongopai, told through the context or the medium of tamoko. And as Brad had alluded to, we are the most inked nation in the world. So it's really a conversation starter, tamoko, tatau, kirituhi. And for us in New Zealand, Aotearoa, if we want access to some karaitiana tanga Christian resources, we are sorely lacking in that respect. There is not much out there, and so that really needs to change. And so Mukwarangi is really my attempt to bring something to life, to put it out there that Māori can celebrate, that is also about the goodness of Ihu Karate, the Lord Jesus. The Lord Jesus celebrates our whakapono and of whakapono. So many of us have got strong Anglican roots. And as Brad alluded to, it was our tupuna that learned how to read via the paipera tapu. So faith and the written word goes together beautifully. And we know that, Jesus is the word. The word was with God and was God. And so Mukwarangi, it's 6 parts. It's a 6-part journey. It's a quest for a restored identity from our Heavenly Father. So moko is the image of the Lord, arangi from the heavens. So a restored image from the heavens. How does that grab you, Amber?
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Sounds awesome, eh?
Yeah, sounds awesome. Kia ora, Kerry-Ann. Kia ora, Pete and Shah. Darlene.
So, Amber, I've got to tell you, I met in Israel for the World Christian Gathering of Indigenous People. And the minute I met him, I was like, man, this brother is on fire. And I just really love that creativity, whether it's written, carved, spoken via poetry, for Indigenous people. Basically, creativity is like that's our thing. And when I met obviously a tattoo artist, a tāmoko artist, and I knew that I wanted to partner with him. And so he's very much been a part of this puka puka. We also have 20 people who are Maori and Pacifica people of faith that have shared their testimony in this puka puka. And I think that's remarkable because, you know, I want to say this quote, you know, until the hunt is told from the perspective of the lion, it will only ever be told from the perspective of the hunter. And what I mean by that is that, man, for the longest of times, Māori haven't you know had the opportunity for our story to be told. You just heard from Brad, it costs $40,000 to write a book. Many of us have access to that kind of money. And the history books haven't been friendly, haven't been kind to Māori because we didn't write the history. But the tide is turning, and that's a part of the justice that the Lord is bringing to the land, is that the stories of the land are being released. And Brad is very much at the front of that. I still consider myself a little scrap compared to some of those kōtara. But, you know, the thing is that we write for a generation that are yet to be born. And I take that mahi very seriously. I'm writing for my tamariki, for my daughter's daughter, you know. And that's the power of the written word. It will be here long after I'm gone.
Yeah, you're right, Jade. We didn't write history, but we're part of history, yet there's history to be made. And it's our youth, it's the future, Jade. We live for our future, live for our generation. Yeah, neat, Jade.
And just to mention too, is that like one of the things, I know everyone's moving to digital, but there is something beautiful about and tactile about pages and magazines. And so that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing for the last 4 years. I was the editor for the Maori Authors magazine, Te Hokioi. And I'm really proud to say that we actually went to the New Zealand Journalism Awards, and we become runner-up for Best Magazine of the Year. We lost out to House and Garden. Can you imagine that? House and Garden. Come on, man. But, this little old magazine that is such a legacy, such a history, because Te Hokioi was actually a printing press that was given by the Emperor of Austria, Franz Joseph, to two Māori men here from Te Awamutu, and they brought this printing press back from Austria and released the first Te Reo Māori newspaper. It was called Te Hokioi e Rere Atuna, the Soaring Word. And that was the first written newspaper in Te Reo, pro-kingitanga, and that just went out and our people just devoured it. They just loved it. This pānui in the form of written text that they could get. And that printing press is here in the Te Awamutu Museum, and that's the name of the Māori Kings magazine. So I've got a copy here. You can see it in the background, but here it is.
Oh gosh.
And, so that's something that I really enjoyed doing too, whether it was books like Mokoarangi is a resource to help our people come back to the Lord for healing and transformation. Te Hokioi is a magazine, but in it were articles from our people, from the land. I'm also writing the biography of Wiremu Tamihana's descendant, the current Tumuaki, for Ngāti Haua, Matua Anaru Thompson, and that's a beautiful, beautiful project. And he's a very significant man, very God-fearing, powerful rangatira, and that's a real honor too. And so, yeah, I just love, like I said, I just love recording for a generation that is yet to be born, that these amazing stories about the land, about the Lord, and about what he's doing in the hearts and minds of his people. And when I write, I cry. When I'm sitting at my keyboard and I'm typing, I cry. And then there's that saying, as there is tears in the eyes of the writer, so shall there be tears in the eyes of the reader. And that's my hope, that Wairua Tapu comes from my keyboard to the page, and that someone can pick something up and be inspired towards the Lord. And so, yeah, that's my why, eh?
Yeah. Had you always been this way, Jade?
I think I've always had a capacity in me to want to celebrate the goodness of the Lord, because, when the Lord impacted my life, he saved my life literally on the 28th of May, 2003. And, I had tried everything, but, Wairua Tapu was the only true essence that could lead me towards life and life in abundance. And I want that for my people. So writing, is really just a tabletop for me to meet with other broken people, to share a message of hope. And so that's the power of what we do. That's the power of storytelling, crafting words. We're inspiring people towards a better version of themselves, a better future for themselves. And I guess, there's that saying in Proverbs 7, even as we might etch words on paper, so the Lord also etches on the tablets of our hearts. So we're all poetry, we're God's workmanship, we're his poem. So he himself is the great author. And it only comes natural to us as his tamariki to follow in the ways of our Father. And so, yeah, so that's that passion point. Yeah.
Nice, Jade. So you're actually among a lot of creatives, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of your mahi that you do as well, yeah, tell us how you got into that scene.
Yeah. So, creative people are magnets. They will always attract other like-minded creative individuals. And so for me, I'm creative in the way I think. I can look outside the box. I can see avenues and possibilities. Other creatives are creative with, a pen and a paper. My friend who we're going to interview this week, my sister, Vox Dawn, her the ammunition or weapon of warfare when it comes to creative avenues is her song. And so creatives are drawn to each other because we know what it's like to shape the world around us. We're all nation builders. We're all trying to create a new world that's healthier, more responsive, more colorful, more prone to dismantling systems, unjust systems, or, creativity is really about transformation. We transform the environment by the way we think, sing, dance, and play. And, once again, we're just doing what we see our Father do. And so, so it's lovely to, I always say, this is the time for creatives to arise. And Bill Johnson just did a podcast last month. He said, when in war, create. And if ever we're in a war, it's in the days that we're living in. But, you know, we know that when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Lord will raise up a standard, and that standard is excellence, creativity, integrity, passion, power, wisdom. And so that's how we float.
I like that, Jade. That's how we flow. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so good. So good. So what would you say to people who are keen to follow these footsteps?
Yeah. So I would say in Zechariah, there's this beautiful scripture that says, "Do not despise the day of small beginnings." And it's a scripture that I just totally love, because when you look at the first page of a book, you're like, oh, this maunga, how am I ever going to get to the final chapter? But it's literally what Brad said. It's getting up at 5 a.m. It's you know, if you can put 10 words on a page each day, you know, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and before you know it, you've written a book. Before you've you've written a screenplay. You've written you know, a drama, some poetry. You know, it's really about just being passionate about a subject and putting it down on paper. You don't have to wait till, you know, you're an expert. You don't have to wait till you've, you know, you've won some accolade to say, oh yeah, I'm an author. It's just really about being obedient to that desire, that dream that burns in you to say, you know, I want to leave something for the next generation. I want to write something. I want to find a creative outlet for this passion that's churning in me. And it's really about being obedient, because, you know, the Lord gives dreams to the dreamers. He doesn't give them to people that are going to abort what he's asking to be birthed. And if you're wrestling with what the Lord's put in you, there's only one way that baby's going to come out. And from a mama's perspective, there's only one way, and you push that baby out. You push that dream out, and it might hurt, and everything in you might be like, get this dream out of me. But that's, you know, sometimes there's pain, sometimes there's it's hard work. It is hard work, but to keep going and knowing that there's great reward in dreams being birthed and realized. Yeah, that's what I'd say. And don't necessarily give up on those dreams, because the world needs dreamers. The world needs people with imagination. You know, Google, Elon Musk, he's not necessarily employing all of those people with 3 PhDs. He's just looking for creative imagination. He's looking for creatives that can offer something in this world that people haven't seen or haven't thought about. And that's where Indigenous creatives really can come to the fore, because, you know, what the Lord has given us, our cultural knowledge, our heritage, the ways in which we move and groove, that's unique, that's original. And the creative mind, you know, paired with that is something that I believe is really quite sought after in this world right now.
Yeah, awesome, Jade. So good, so good. So just to wind down, any more last words for our viewers?
Yes. If you want to get a copy of Mokuarangi, and the part 2 book is Mokuanuku, which will be coming out in about March next year, they're sold as a set. Then you can go to www.pohono.org.nz. That's who I work for, and our job is literally just to birth resources that provoke and encourage people to take that one step closer to the Lord. And so that's on the website, but I also chuck a couple of copies to the sister Amber and to the whānau on the karakia page, so that we can give some out, and there'll be information on the karakia page as to how to get those puka as well. And so just one other thing is that I am being paid to write, and so that's a real blessing. And all of the proceeds go back into the community from where that pūtea came, which is South Auckland. And so that's just another awesome thing as well, just to note. Kia ora.
Yeah, actually, can you tell us about that South Auckland? Because that's a big deal, actually. If the putia is going back into the community, that is a blessing in itself, right? Can you can you tell us about that?
So, and this is a part of, the outworking of the practical applications of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. A lot of our Christian brothers and sisters are wanting to do something practical, and a part of being a good treaty partner, tangata tiriti, is the offering of resources for initiatives like Mokuarangi to be written. And so that putia has enabled me to write the book. And now the proceeds of the book will go into ministry and serving the community in Mangere in South Auckland out of Te Karaiti Te Pauherenga Waka, the Maori church there. And so we have a whole team, Te Takiwa o Manukau, and they're just there to serve and to love on our people in South Auckland. And so, I mean, that's beautiful, that's powerful, and that right there is a beautiful example of Te Tiriti o Waitangi being outworked by brothers and sisters who are Pākehā that want to, impact, serve, and support the Māori ministry in Aotearoa. So we're really grateful to that.
Te Takiwa o Manukau, is that right?
Yeah. Te Takiwa o Manukau. That's Darlene. That's Darlene and Kiri. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're all connected.
Yeah, cool. So what we honor of God's, he's gonna honor what we do that belongs to him, right? So that's a blessing in itself. Well, it's been you're amazing, Jade. I've watched your work and I get, I'm just so blessed that I get this time with you. I'm blessed that I actually get to, have a relationship with you and Zach and your whānau. We were just talking before we jumped on tonight, doing a wānanga with you next year with Erin, and we yet to talk to our care team to join with you down in Whitianga. Yeah. With Auntie Minna.
Yeah, Pastor Minna, she's so beautiful.
Yeah,
so powerful.
I know.
Amazing Māori leader. Yeah.
Yeah, paving the way for us, ACES.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and I just want to close us off with a karakia, and then you and I connect after this, so don't hang up. So just so whānau, just so you also know that tomorrow night, if you tune in again at 7 p.m. New Zealand time, 7 p.m. Australia time, 9 p.m. New Zealand time, Jade will be interviewing Vox Dawn. Woohoo! So this is another exclusive session for coming to you, Karakians, just for you and for our viewers. Tell your friends, tell all your neighbours, let them know that this is a special Tuesday Night Live special with Jade and Vox. And I'm really looking forward to that moment. Again, thank you for your time, Jade. Thank you to Zach, our friend, your husband, who's given us this time, your time, while he's on putting the kids to sleep. Hey,
yeah,
awesome. All right, well, let me pray us out, and thank you, whānau. Thank you, Lord. Lord, I just pray your blessings upon Jade and upon Brad, and we just pray that, God, that your hand be upon them. We pray that, Lord, that it be your word that will go forth, Lord, that it will not return void, but that it would accomplish in which you please, and that it will prosper where it is sent, from their wairua, from their hearts, from their minds, hearts, and onto the pages, Lord, that what the manuscripts that they write, like a pen, like their lips is like a ready pen written on paper according to your word. And so we just pray and thank you, Lord, that they'll continue to prosper in all things and be in good health, and that their soul will continue to prosper in all things, Father, that, Lord, that they've reached out into the community to to be the community in this place, and for the identity of who we are as Maori people, Lord, so that they can have an impact on the people of the land, Lord. We thank you and we pray your blessings and your hand, and also on our karakia people, on our karakia viewers, Marcus and Aaron, in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jade. And thank you, Whānau, for coming out. If you have any questions, just write them on the chat and we'll get in contact with you. And if you need any books, just let us know as well. So thank you. Thank you again, Jade. Ngā mihi. Oh.